In previous part of this chapter, we have studied about the different mode of absorption of water, osmosis, the applications of the turgidity and plasmolysis, and the other topics. Now in this part, we are going to study the root pressure, bleeding, guttation, and some experiments related to transport of materials, that is the water, mineral, and the food prepared in the lab through xylem and phloem. So now first of all we start with the absorption of root with root pressure. Now we have used the term root pressure earlier while explaining about the turgidity. Now, what is root pressure? As the name suggests, it is the pressure developed in the root. How does it happen? When the root hair absorbs water from the soil, it becomes turgid and its cell sap becomes hypotonic with respect to the next cell in the root. As a result, due to the pressure developed, the water moves from root hair cell to the inner cell, and in this way to the subsequent cells. The pressure developed due to difference in turgidity of the cells in root is known as root pressure. So we say here that is the pressure developed in the cortical cell. Actually cortical cell, that is the cell of the cortex, cortical cell of root, due to continued inflow of water, that is inward movement of water, inflow of water by cell to cell osmosis, is called root pressure. Now this can be easily explained with the help of a diagram. Suppose we take the TS of a section, a diagram of a root. Now you will draw in one direction mainly. Suppose here is the section TS of the root. Now on this side here there is the outer layer of the cell, that is called epidermis. The cell of the epidermis elongates and develop into the root hair cell. In the root hair you see that is there is the nucleus. Now here is the cell membrane, cell wall, nucleus, and then there is large vacuole inside it. Vacuole. Around it there are water droplets in the soil and some irregular, that is the soil particles, it will be represented. Now here on this side there is the endodermis, the cell of endodermis. On the inner side, that is outside, inside it there is another layer of cell, that is called pericycle, and then inside it there are thick walled, this type of, that is the cells, thick walled cells arranged in along the radius, that will be the xylem, and in between there are soft cells like this is the phloem. Now there are the cells in this part which are parenchymatous cells, so there will be the intercellular space also. Now we see a student, that is due to osmosis. Now these are water molecule. Suppose this is soil particle. Now this is root hair. This is epidermis. Now we see here a student, that is the root hair cell is the extension, elongation of the epidermal cells, so root hair cell is unicellular. Now this is endodermis, and the cell between the endodermis and epidermis is called cortex. So this is a cell of cortex which consists of parenchymatous tissue. Now inside it, that is inside the epidermis, there is pericycle. Now suppose again we draw this thick walled cell. Now this is xylem and this is phloem. So how does root pressure develops? Now again you see, a student, due to the osmosis, water enters into the root hair cell and its cell sap becomes hypotonic with respect to the next cortical cell. Or we can say, when the root hair cell becomes turgid, then due to the difference in concentration, it develops pressure over the other cell. Now it becomes turgid, it develops another pressure. In this way, the water moves up to the xylem vessel, from where it will move in upward direction. So this here, the pressure developed due to cell to cell osmosis in the cells of cortex due to continuous inflow of water is known as root pressure. So a student, this is the continuous process. Now this type of diagram based question was asked in ICSE exam. Clear, student? Now root pressure helps in some phenomenon, some natural phenomenon. And what are these phenomena related to root pressure? Now root pressure helps in bleeding, guttation and ascent of sap. That is the upward movement or transport of water and mineral through xylem vessel. It will help in ascent of sap in small plants. Root pressure will be sufficient to create the force that will push water in upward direction. Now, what is bleeding? As the name suggests, suppose when in our body at any place some injury takes place or it is cut, then the blood start to flow out. That is called bleeding. In similar way, when the stem, when the part of the plant is cut, from that part the cell sap start to ooze out. That phenomenon is also known as bleeding. So this is the process of oozing out of cell sap from cut or injured part of plant is called bleeding. Now this can be easily observed by us, like in many garden plants. When a leaf is plucked or a scratch is made on a cut is made on a stem, then white milky fluid start to come out of it. This is due to bleeding. Now you have often seen in rubber plantation, the milk of rubber is collected by the process called bleeding, because a cut is made on a stem and a small metallic pot is placed under it, in which drop wise the milk of rubber is collected. Now this is the bleeding. Again you see, palm tree juice is collected by making a cut in its fruit, or that is the suspended fruit part, and then in the earthen pot its juice is collected. So all of them are due to the bleeding. Now there is another process that is called guttation. This term, both the terms will also be studied in transpiration chapter. Now in transpiration, water is lost due to evaporation from aerial part of the plant. Now In guttation, during the night, during cold winter nights, when the transpiration does not take place, but the root pressure forces the water in upward direction and it must be eliminated. Then along the margin of the leaf, suppose here is the leaf petiole. Now through the xylem vessel water goes to this part, and at the end of the veins there will be some openings. So if the water in the form of droplet squeeze out along the margin of the leaf, then this is the guttation, water droplet. So in transpiration, water is lost in the form of water vapor, but in guttation, water is lost in the form of water droplet. In transpiration, it takes place mainly through stomata, but in this part, the opening present along the margin of the leaf is known as hydathode. So we can write here that the opening present along the margin of the leaf, along the margin of the leaf at the end of veins, is called hydathode. So through this opening guttation takes place. Then what is guttation now? The process of loss of water as droplets, the process of loss of water as droplets through the openings present along the margin of the leaf, that is hydathode. Hydathode is called guttation. So the root pressure helps mainly in these two phenomena, that is the bleeding and guttation, as well as it also helps in ascent of sap. So to demonstrate this application, we have an experiment, that is to demonstrate the phenomenon of root pressure. Experiment to show the effect of root pressure. That is, it helps in ascent of sap. Now how will you perform this experiment? For this one, we take a small well watered garden plant, like suppose it is balsam plant, soft stemmed balsam plant. Now its stem is cut, the aerial part of it is cut here, and then we take a long U tube placed on a scale or board, that is called, here is the scale, that is called manometer. A scale is made over it. Now here is the fluid, suppose mercury is placed here. Now then the two ends of the stem and this glass tube, this is the glass tube, manometer. Now it is connected with the help of rubber tube. Now it is sealed properly. This is the initial setup. Now this is the initial level. Now after some times you will observe that gradually the fluid gets filled in it. Gradually fluid gets filled in it. So after some times we will observe that the fluid gets filled in it completely, and here the level will rise up. This rise in level of the fluid in the manometer, in this arm of manometer, is due to the root pressure, because the root pressure forces the water to rise up through the stem, that exerts pressure on the mercury in this limb, that causes it to rise. So this is to demonstrate the effect of root pressure. Clear, student? In this experiment, that is to show that root absorbs water, we take a small garden plant like balsam. It is gently uprooted such that root remains intact. The root is washed and then it is put in a tube containing water. Suppose here is the balsam plant. Now here there is the aerial part, the leaf. Now this is the setup A. Now in this part, on the water surface we put few drops of oil. Here is the oil. Now this is balsam plant. Balsam plant. Now we also arrange another setup, but this time we will not place any plant in it, and then the oil is also placed here. Actually this is used to compare the result, so B will act as the control setup. This is control setup. If the question is asked what is the requirement of setup B, we will say that it acts as control. Now what will be the observation? Observation. After 1 or 2 days, after 1 or 2 days, the level of water in the tube A falls, whereas it remains unchanged in B. Now this is the observation. Now we'll have to explain its reasoning. Now the water is lost due to transpiration or by for other life processes in by the aerial part of the plant, which is in turn absorbed by the root. So if we have to write here reason, then we will write that the water is lost by aerial part of plant, which is then absorbed by the root. Hence the level of water in tube A falls. In tube B, since there is no loss of water, there is no root to absorb water, so there is no loss, there is no decrease in level of water. The question is asked, what is the purpose of putting oil on the surface? So we write here, the oil prevents loss of water by evaporation from free surface. So we see, a student, that is, if there is the presence of water, then it was absorbed and level decreases. So this was to show that root absorbs water. Now we will study the experiments related to transport of materials by xylem and phloem. Now in this experiment we are studying, that is, the xylem conducts water in upward direction. Now student, for this one we take two leafy branch of soft stemmed plant like again balsam by, and the the twig is cut by dipping in water to prevent air bubble from entering into the xylem, and it is quickly placed in beaker containing water. Suppose there is the two setup, we have taken two leafy twigs, and now its lower end is dipped in water. Now the cut part is like this, obliquely cut. Now in first part we remove the outer layer of the stem. Here outer layer of the stem is removed, hence its xylem will be present in this part. There is the leaf, since it is the leafy twig. But in the second part we see that with the help of needle and sharp knife we separate, or that is we widen the outer layer, and then we remove the central hard part of it, that is the xylem is removed. Here xylem is removed and the phloem remain intact. In this case, here is again the leafy twig, so there is the leaf. Now what will we observe? After few days, if we have to write observation, then we see that after few days, or that is in 1 or 2 days, in 1 or 2 days, for A, setup A. Now the leaves remain erect and turgid. In B, the leaves above cut part wilt. This is the main observation. Now we have to write its reason. The reason is that in this part the phloem part is removed, outer layer is removed, but the xylem is intact. So through the xylem vessel it will continue to receive water. That is, in A, water is lost by transpiration, but the leaves continue to receive water through intact xylem. But in case B, here the xylem is removed and the phloem is intact only, so it is not able to receive water because here the xylem is removed. There is no continuous channel. So in B, due to the absence of xylem, leaves above cut part do not receive water, and hence the leaves wilt. So this shows that the xylem conducts water in upward direction. So if the xylem is present, it will be leaves above it will be able to receive water. But in this case, since the xylem is removed, there is no continuous channel through which the leaves can get water again. So finally the leaves will wilt after some time, or after few hours, 1 or 2 days, the leaves will wilt. Clear, student? So this is the experiment to show that xylem conducts water in upward direction. Now, one more important experiment is given, which is also termed as girdling experiment. Although this is similar to that experiment, but we can have some more observations related to it. So third part. In this part, we are going to describe that phloem translocates food to show that phloem conducts. Actually, when the phloem carries food, then it is called translocates. Translocates food in downward direction, downward and upward direction, and xylem conducts water. Xylem conducts water in upward direction. Actually, in this part we explain both of them in upward direction. Both conditions can be explained. Otherwise, this is the main point. Now, again, in this part we take a well-watered garden plant like balsam, well-watered potted plant this time taken. Suppose we take well-watered potted garden plant, now. In this case, we see that is, first of all, with the help of sharp knife, we, for about 3 to 4 centimeter length, we remove its outer portion, that is the phloem part. So here again the xylem is intact, and in aerial part there are the leaves. So here the xylem is intact and the phloem is removed. Now this setup is placed for few days. So we write here, after few days, what will be our observation? We observe that the leaves remain erect, leaves remain turgid, but the major change that takes place is that above the girdled section some swelling develops. Here this is the girdled section. So swelling develops and the leaves remain erect, turgid, that is, it will not wilt. The reason is that we observe here again, that is, through the intact xylem, the water continues to move in upward direction. The leaves continue to receive water, they remain turgid. But the food prepared in the leaves is unable to move downward. Here, in beginning, we observe that some fluid ooze out of it through the phloem, but gradually the cells die and the food will not be able to pass downward, but it gradually accumulates. So swelling develops due to the accumulation of food that causes extra growth. Now, after some times or in a longer period, gradually the cells below that girdle section of the stem will gradually die due to starvation. Means when the food present in the cells in the lower part when get exhausted, then the cells will be unable to receive the food and they will gradually die. Sometimes In this swelled part, some adventitious roots may also strike out as an extra outgrowth, and that will absorb moisture from the soil. Clear, student? So, in this part, the main part is to show that phloem conducts food in downward direction, as well as we can say that xylem continue to conduct water in upward direction. So, this is called girdling experiment. Now, student, we have mentioned the different experiments. So, students, in plant, the water and minerals absorbed by the root, here is the ascent of sap. We use the term that is the upward movement of water and minerals through xylem by xylem vessel is called ascent of sap. So this transport takes place due to the certain forces. Now, causes or factor responsible are: first, root pressure. We have studied that root pressure is a small pressure which helps the water to move in small plants. Second, imbibition pressure. It also helps movement up to little extent. The most important part which we have to study is called transpiration pull. And lastly, it is the force of adhesion. Now, here is the force of adhesion. We will study here force of cohesion. What is transpiration pull? When water evaporates from the aerial part of the plants, then due to the force of cohesion, that is the intramolecular force of molecules, intramolecular force of attraction, the water evaporating from the aerial part pulls lower molecule of water, creating a suction force that is called transpiration pull, due to which water absorbed by the root will be continuously moving towards the xylem through the xylem vessel up to the leaves. So in tall trees, the water moves in upward direction up to the taller part only due to the transpiration pull. Clear, student? So these were the different mode of absorption and transportation of water and mineral in case of plants. So students, if you will study carefully, systematically, going through every topic, every point, you will be able to understand the topic quite easily, and we will be always with you to make the clear concept. Okay, thank you.